It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
How come we can't keep the song going, Zach?
Because I only have 15 seconds of it.
We're going to get Mike Hamilton on that. Although I did give him an alternate intro that nothing's happened yet.
Oh, well.
All right. I have you.
Yes.
I see the glimmer in your eye. You know what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
Mr. McMahon. We got a couple things coming up. Dan Engel's going to come to talk about the Dallas Cowboys and about picks for this weekend. We're also going to talk about some interesting news here in the college football world. I did a volleyball game last night, Big 12 opener. I'm going to talk about all kinds of stuff. But Zach,
Yes.
I'm going to tell you the best part about college volleyball, so stay there. Zach, what about Mr. McMahon?
So far, I enjoyed it. I will say that it was stuff that you haven't gotten to it yet, but stuff that I brought up yesterday does get brought up on the show.
I know. I heard
Okay.
the part, the unionize.
Well, there was that, but then also, like, I was sitting there because I told my wife, they get into the ring boy scandal and they start talking about it a little bit.
Oh, the sexual scandal.
Yeah, the sexual.
ring boy.
I mean, like, they don't like die. Like, it covers a lot of stuff there.
Cam
about,
looks like he could be a ring boy.
maybe. I
Yeah.
mean, he's small like some of them were. Yeah, and very muscular. He's like a muscle hamster. But and while they're talking about it, I turned and I looked to my wife and I was like, "That's funny." I told Pete like I didn't think they'd bring this up.
Laura.
Yeah, my wife Laura. And so then I was like, the only thing is if they talk about the female referee then too, and I shit you not, they go directly from the ring boy stuff. Bret Hart goes, like they just go to him and he's like, yeah, and then there was the thing with the female referee and they go right into it too. So now the two things that I was like, all right, maybe they will or won't cover it. They at least covered it a little bit.
As
So-
a wrestling fan who was swept up by wrestling when it went mainstream in the 80s,
Mhm.
It was awesome because I appreciate that they let us take a little joyride, right? It talked about the evolution
Yes.
and they talked about
I did like
Vince.
the way it built like that.
Yeah. And it talked about, so I think Vince's idea was he was going to let it rip like, I'm ruthless.
Mhm.
I stole all the wrestling from the territories. I'm a bad dude. I did what I had to do. Obviously, he had no idea what was to come with all these allegations. There's 6 episodes. So
Yeah.
you watched the first 2.
I watched the first 2. I don't know if I'll get 2 more in tonight. I might try to watch some of the Cowboys, so maybe I'll get 1 in.
What was your favorite part about the first 2 episodes besides Hulk Hogan, who whenever?
So, okay.
But by the way, I did appreciate when Jesse Ventura wanted to unionize, and everybody to a man was like, "Yeah, Hogan ran to Vince."
Yeah, they finally, yeah. And that's the thing is like, well, I'm watching that and I'm like, Hogan finally admitted it because he says himself that he did.
Now, were Hulk Hogan and Vince McMahon? Was Hulk doing what was good for Hulk business wise, or were they allies? Did Hogan feel loyalty to him?
I think both. I think some of that he probably went and told Vince was because of loyalty, but at the same time, it's the head of the biggest wrestling promotion and you're his star. So I think that they're both connected in a way.
Okay.
My favorite thing was, and granted, Dave Meltzer has been a wrestling journalist for a long time, and Uncle Dave is in this. That's what a lot of people like to call him.
Dude.
He is, but the scene, and he has his own things that you can go to him about. But
what?
he is. There's a. This is very inside baseball, except for wrestling. There's like a joke that because he has his own like wrestling, like he rates wrestling matches, and he was like the end all be all for a long time of like, oh, Meltzer gave that match like 3.5 stars. Gave that 5 stars. But the joke was always because he always had a liking for like New Japan and the Japanese style of wrestling. That that match was a 4.5. It'd been a 7 in the Tokyo Dome though, and like that's always just to make fun of him there. Yeah, but I did appreciate where they go on this whole thing about WrestleMania 3 and the great spectacle of it.
Yes.
Did you get to this?
Uh-huh.
And then it goes to Meltzer, and Meltzer just essentially pokes holes in everything right after they say it. Because he's like, they always talk about it being 93,000. And then it shows like Bruce Pritchard and Hulk and Vince himself. And all of them are like giving a different 93,000, attendance total. And Meltzer goes, it was closer to 78,000. And he's like, Hogan says that they built it as the first time Andre got slammed. Andre got slammed at least 25 times before that. Like, and they have the footage that they're cutting in to show.
I would imagine too that he put. I didn't see that part yet. Did they? No, it's fine. Did they? the fact that Andre didn't tell anybody how that match was going to end, is that true, you think?
So that my wife asked me that too. And I was like,
It's hard to believe, dude.
So I can see a little bit of Vince going to Andre, telling him you're going to lose to Hogan. And Andre very much was like, okay, boss. Like that's when everybody talks about how he taught you, that's how it was.
Huh?
And him going through with it. But Hogan going and asking, I'm sure that Andre kind of looked at Hogan like, and probably had a little bit of disdain. So he's just like, like he's going to do what Vince asked him to do. But him keeping it from Hogan, yeah, I could see that being a little bit of a thing.
I had forgotten about how, like, the prejudice against different areas of the country, which was in lockstep with where America was at the time. But like the Japanese wrestlers, the Iron Sheik, Russia, Nikolai Volkov. I mean, it was pretty amazing how McMahon was brilliant. He knew this was going to piss people off, and he went with it.
It got a little too close for comfort. Then they talk about then too of him doing that towards the end of episode 2.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's like why Bob Costas left. Like it's not really brought out, but with like Desert Storm and stuff and Sergeant Slaughter being an Iranian or an Iraqi sympathizer. Like, so, I mean, it does backfire a little bit, but he talks about that too then. So,
one thing, I had forgotten how much I had a crush on Wendy Richter. I mean, when she was with Cyndi Lauper and Lauper was training her for that championship bout, I was like, wow, she was at the top of her game. Now, of course, the years aren't kind to all of us.
Yeah.
Oh, look at Mike. Just brought you a Coke Zero.
I did not.
It's for him.
Oh, I thought you dropped, God forbid. I thought he dropped something off for you. All right, I'll let you get to uploading the video, Zach.
The Alyssa one's good. I'm letting you know when Paul is.
So yeah, Mr. McMahon, obviously I'm like super excited about that. And I watched it. I ran home to watch it from here before we had I had a volleyball game last night, and I stopped over and with our buddy Matt Mosley and Cam. They were at the Brazos Landing doing a live remote. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, it's a good time to be a fan of sports. And this is what happens in the fall of every year. They start to drop this great television on us, and it really is a windfall of programming for me right now. And I'm not saying this is brain surgery television, but I'm backed up on the Menendez brothers. I'm backed up on Aaron Hernandez. Now I got 5.5 episodes or 4.5 episodes of Mr. McMahon left to watch, and I got the Cowboys and Giants tonight. And I also have this amazing work thing I'm doing on Friday and Saturday and Sunday. I'll share with you guys when it comes. It's literally a secret. I'm not a part of the secret. I mean, I'm covering this secret, but it's a big deal. And the guy who is being featured is someone who is like really moves the needle and is pretty awesome, especially among younger, I guess the culture of the youth or whatever. He's got like 10, 20 million followers on like YouTube. He's a big deal. So I'm pumped to be a part of that. Very grateful. That's in Atlanta on Saturday through like Monday. But as far as sports today, quickly last night, I Big 12 volleyball. I did the Baylor, Arizona Big 12 volleyball conference opener for those schools. Volleyball can be so much fun. Baylor won the first set, then they won the second. Arizona bounced back and won the third. Baylor ended up winning in 4 sets. These athletes, it's like poetry in motion. The way that they sky and elevate, and I've called volleyball for a while now. And I'm always like so fortunate to be a part of it. Arizona had this girl, Jalen Hodge, who they might as well make like an action figure for. She had like 21 kills, and every time she elevated, it was like watching a very good basketball player. And the reason I say that, it's not like she couldn't be a very good basketball player, but basketball is more mainstream than volleyball. Some of the stuff that these athletes do, the force, how nimble they are, and also the heads up play, right? Like the no look dumps over the net. It's just a lot of fun. I had a blast last night calling the game with Katie Smith. Also, when you call a game with a play-by-play with a color analyst who like and you're like in a rhythm with, there is nothing better. It's always a treat to be able to call any type of bigger sporting event. When you get to like the Big 12 and other conferences of that level, it's so much fun. But man, what a treat last night calling that Big 12 opener. I look forward to, I think I got a couple more this year. But yeah, in the first game that Arizona's ever played in the Big 12, Baylor's ranked 19th in the country. So go check them out at the Farrell Center. It's all theirs now with the basketball over to Foster Pavilion. All right, so we're going to talk a little bit now about basketball and about women's basketball. And so last night, after the I guess the Indiana Fever was eliminated from the playoffs, players from the Connecticut Sun talked about, and this was like really crappy that this happened, and I want to make sure I get this right. They talked about the fact that there were like racist threats made during the game. One of the players, Alyssa Thomas, is like really, really good. And apparently she's like this really awesome woman too. And she was upset, man. She was like, this is crap. She called out the Fever's fans for racial comments. And the more and more you hear about this, it is their comments made online and their comments. I'm not quite sure if they were made in person. Apparently there was some of that. It's just like it's such a stain on society when stuff like this happens. But she was vocal about that after the game. And Stephen A. Smith on First Take this morning said something that honestly I was too scared to say, and that I can't say because I don't have the background of somebody like Stephen A. I certainly don't have the background of somebody like Alyssa Thomas, whether you talk about culturally or just professionally. And I thought this and I was like, is that possible? And then I heard Stephen A. said it. So let's run the clip from Stephen A. talking this morning, and then I'll talk a little more about it.
As it pertains to the point that you've illuminated, which is right on point, the fellas have been going through this forever. Forever. There used to be a code. You don't do that to women. You don't do that to ladies. That code is gone. In today's society, with social media and beyond, folks don't give a damn. There is no line of demarcation. There is no line of decency. There isn't such a thing as, you know what, you don't mess with women and children, for example. They will attack women. They will attack children.
You're hiding behind computer screens.
They will
like
do it
cowards.
They will do it mercilessly. So, yes, it's great that the WNBA spoke up about it. It's great that the commissioner spoke out. It's great that Alyssa Thomas and others are speaking out. I hope it continues. Just know it ain't going to change.
And I know. I don't think it will.
Because indecent people are indecent people.
So that was Stephen A. Smith talking about this vile treatment of some of these women's basketball players, specifically members of the Connecticut Sun. And it makes you think, like, the WNBA has evolved to such a level now that, as Stephen A. said in his words, and in my memory, growing up as a kid in the 80s and 90s and into the 2000s, like, this is not new in sports. People suck. Not all people, some people. And honestly, the percentage of people that suck, in my experience in life, is slimmer than the people that are exceptional, good people. A lot slimmer, but the people that suck are still out there, and I don't hear them anywhere near as loud as somebody, a minority, say, or an underrepresented person, a person from an underrepresented background that's hearing this stuff. I don't hear it, and sometimes they don't either. It's when people are keyboard warriors, right? They're in line with you at the grocery store, smiling and nodding, and then they go home and they're expressing these abhorrent opinions on Twitter or someplace else. And it was a reflection on, man, the WNBA has gotten so big that there's no longer any protection or any type of, hey, we need to stay away from that because we're talking about women here. No one is immune now to this crappy behavior. And anything that gets so big and really in society, right, and just grabs pop culture like the WNBA has and like Caitlin Clark has, nobody's immune. I thought that another thing, Caitlin Clark is this is like a Cliff's Notes, right? Caitlin Clark is awesome. She's amazing, and she's so good for the WNBA, and there is so much attention around her, and you could say that there's some resentment from some women's basketball players about all the coverage that she's gotten. And I think that's totally normal. I don't think that's like awful for these women to feel that way. They have been playing exceptional basketball at an elite level for a very long time. Caitlin Clark is a once in a generation talent. But I don't care who you are in any line of work. These are normal human emotions we're talking about. To lash out on the other side and say, I can't believe that they resent her, or look at all she's doing. Look, man, you got to allow people to be human beings, right, wrong, or indifferent. We're talking about behavior sometimes that you would, oh, man, that sucks. Like, were they getting a little too physical with Caitlin Clark early in the season? Maybe. Were they sending a message? By the way, she was a rookie. And an amazing rookie. And that's not the first time that has happened in pro sports. Michael Jordan, to this day, says he was frozen out of his first All-Star game by Isaiah Thomas and other veterans in the NBA who felt he was flashy. Isaiah still denies it. But either way, this, rook, young guy, you're coming up, you get your comeuppance, whatever you want to say. So that's not specific to Caitlin Clark. But I think there should be a little bit more understanding that, hey, man, people have emotions. And there has been a lot of attention paid to one individual around a sport that has always been really good, women's basketball. It's different now, and she's special. But you could also go back to Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. And it was reflected in the show Winning Time. It was reflected in Jeff Pearlman's book, which the show was based on, that like back in the day, like, look, Larry Bird was amazing, but he was a white guy in society where they were really looking forward. And this is a time when most of the fans in the NBA were white, and they, some of them complained that there were too many players that were minorities. So anyways, I'm kind of drifting into waters here that could get me in trouble, but hey, that's how I feel. And I felt like it was worth sharing with you guys. One other thing that has been on my radar, and I felt like we talked about it yesterday, the Matt Sluka situation in UNLV, or at UNLV, and how he left because he wasn't getting paid. And I said this yesterday, how it was foolish that if what we had, the information that we had gathered was accurate, it was foolish that UNLV did not pay Matt Sluka the money that they told him that they would give him. The unfortunate part about this is, there was no written agreement. And ultimately, when you think about that, that happens in business, that happens in people's personal lives. Like, people make promises all the time, but their inability to fulfill them, a lot of times it's good to hold them to a legal standard. And Matt Sluka didn't have that going for him, and he's not going to get paid. It's not like he's going to, okay, I'm going to go play somewhere else, and I'm going to seek restitution for, the $100,000 or whatever I'm owed. Like, no, that's not possible. Like, he'll never see that money, but he's going to play somewhere else where he'll get paid. And the thought I had yesterday was, a bigger school wouldn't even mess with this. $100,000 is a lot of money to me and you, but when it comes to these major college football programs with a lot of money, it's nothing. And Paul Feinbaum said it this morning a lot better than I can.
The most surprising thing is that this isn't even surprising. We've expected something like this to happen, and before we all go into a panic mode, this is just, as you said, the beginning of it. You can't tell someone something in this new age of college athletics and not follow up. I don't blame the player one bit. From a legal standpoint, he probably doesn't have a claim, but this isn't about legality in Nevada. This is about promises made that weren't fulfilled. And I'm sure a lot of other players right now are looking around going, am I going to be the next one to jump in? And it's not the NCAA's fault. That train left. It is Vegas's fault. I mean, we're talking about $100,000, and I realize that is a lot of money to most people watching right now. But at Alabama, Georgia, Texas, I mean, that's a backup. I mean, that's not even a legitimate player, let alone the most important player on your team. That's how ridiculous this is. And I think for players, I hope they get opportunities, but know what you're doing when you deal with some of these smaller schools, because the big schools will pay you. I promise you.
Yeah, so I found that interesting, that was something that Paul Feinbaum says, because there's two ways to think about that. One, well, the quote unquote, remember we talked about this, everybody did. Are we going to become a situation where we have the haves and the have-nots? Well, UNLV, they're the have-nots, right? Alabama, Georgia, they are the haves. That money is nothing to Alabama, Georgia, and other schools in the SEC, $100,000, apparently to UNLV and their collective who was in on this. And you figure if the collective we're not, again, Feinbaum talked about it. We're not talking about a backup running back or backup quarterback or a starting safety. We're talking about the starting quarterback on a team that had started 3-0, was ranked in the top 25, and was in the playoff conversation, right? As that Power 5 school that can go ahead and lock up a spot. The haves and the have-nots, it's really starting to become a reality. It's no longer a conversation. It's becoming a reality. So as that story plays out, unfortunately, there probably will be more behind it. But it is unfortunate that a school like UNLV may just not have the means to keep up with the Joneses. We'll come back with Dan Ingham taking it to the bank from First National Bank of Central Texas. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network, rolls on.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Dan Ingham is here on the eve of Darby Brown, or I guess it is the day of Darby Brown's last hurrah tonight on KWTX, calling Thursday night football.
Yeah.
Who you guys got?
First of all, let me, Paul. I mean, I've been in TV. I should know to shut my mouth until we come on camera right there. So
There's no red light, brother.
It's all good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're doing a Thursday night football, man. This is a lot of fun. And, Darby is moving down to Austin, who I'm thrilled for her. She's awesome. Working with my friend Bob Ballou at KI, a great crew down there. And so, but she's going to work in sideline with us. One last run. Darby, myself, and Royden. We're doing Temple and Shoemaker. Should be a pretty good game.
Wow,
actually.
that will be a good
6-8 game. Both teams are 3-1, so I'm actually pretty fired up for this one. Should be a lot of fun.
Wow, that is exciting.
Two good teams. Yes.
Yeah. So that's cool, and that's going to be on the CW live tonight at 7 p.m.
You can get it streaming too, so KBTX.com.
And KWTX does a good job. They send the alerts out. I love that.
Yeah, so it's a good matchup, first district game, so looking a lot of fun. And
where's the game? At Sorrel Stadium?
At Leo Buckley, the Buck, the long time.
You spent a lot of time at Leo Buckley.
I bet you I've been to 50 games there over the years, if I had to guess, just being conservative. Yeah.
How many people does that stadium hold?
Maybe 10 grand, 10,000 or so, if I had to guess, something like that. It's decent size. Yeah.
What's the biggest high school football stadium in Central Texas, like in our area here?
I'm going to guess.
Yeah, I'm not holding your feet.
Maybe Waco ISD, Midway, or Temple, but Temple's visiting site isn't that big. I'm going to say Waco ISD or Midway, if I had to guess.
You know I love talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
We used to really salt away blowouts.
Well, I mean, this tells you how many bad games we had. Like, we look at each other, just talk about anything. All right, good. All right. Yeah.
What was your favorite? What was the game where you were at where the stadium was the most crowded, like almost overflowing or capacity?
So I'm actually going to go back to a game that was played at the old Floyd Casey Stadium. I'm going to mid 2000s, La Vega versus China Spring. And it was an epic matchup. You got to remember, this is when Baylor football was not very good. So it was the best game at Floyd Casey Stadium in a long time. And I bet you, the stadium was half full. So we're talking 20, 25,000 people there. Went down to the last, 2 or 3 plays of the game. It was just an epic playoff game. Mark Bell, Willie Williams.
Bell, wow.
That's right. It was a lot of fun. So I'm not sure I've been to a bigger local game than that. A half full Floyd. It was pretty amazing.
All right, well, run the gamut with you. We just talked about Matt Sluka before you came on here. What are your thoughts about that and the future of college football and where it's headed?
Well, I guess I've got, a few ways to look at it. So as a former athlete like you, as like seeing my teammate leave, like when we're pretty good and like have a chance to do something special, that stinks. And so regardless of all the other noise, that stinks for the players at UNLV that they lost their starting quarterback. So if this kid's telling the truth that somewhere down the line promises weren't kept, now, in the real world, you sign contracts. You know what I mean? Like you and I have signed contracts before. Was it a verbal? Was it, so that makes me wonder. Or if the school's telling the truth that, man, we paid him what we said we were going to pay him, then I think it stinks that he's just trying to leverage it for more money. That said, that's the way capitalism works. So all in all, I think it stinks. I'm not saying there's a villain in this. I think it stinks for football that a starting quarterback 4 games into the season will leave like that.
I think it also was a reflection, and this is a bummer, and like college football purists, cover your ears, the lack of, I guess, loyalty or relationship some of these guys have with their teammates. Like he's gone to war with these guys 3 times.
Yeah.
They went through training camp together, however hard that is nowadays for college football players. There's the Cowboys teams that won Super Bowls with Jimmy Johnson and ultimately Barry Switzer, they were awful together before they won those Super Bowls. And it's like you survive a shipwreck and you have this incredible bond with your teammates and you're able to do incredible things.
It becomes that much more special too.
Yeah.
There's something to be said for
it's
that.
So much easier for somebody just to walk away now.
Yeah. And let me point out, you and I were talking about this off air. I got to believe, and I don't know UNLV's finances and their collective, but if they thought this was someone they had to keep, they would come up with $100,000, right?
Yeah.
Because think of it this way. If they were to somehow make the playoff, that's worth millions of dollars for UNLV. So I don't know. There's just a lot of unanswered questions, but I got to believe that if they had to get $100,000 to keep their quarterback, they would have done it.
Okay.
So I don't know.
All right. I want you to answer some questions before you give me your picks. Baylor, Saturday morning, 11 a.m. against a BYU team who's 2-12 in day games in their last 14.
There you go.
That's crazy stat.
Yeah, that's wild.
And Baylor's favored, and I think that's probably part of the reason why. What do you make of this situation at Baylor and a game like this one, 11 a.m. against a top 25 opponent that's undefeated?
You got to win. I mean, and listen, must win. I get it. I mean, it's not like the season's over. They got to win. They got to win because there's kind of that chirping going on right now in the fan base, whether it's justified or not. And you got to get back on track. You lose this game, then oh wow, how do we get to 6? It just feels a lot tougher. It's a game that like you said, they're favored. I mean, really, I think you're looking at Utah and like everybody else kind of in a bundled up mix, So I mean, Baylor can beat a lot of teams this year. Are they going to do it? I don't know, but they got to win this weekend.
The strength of the Big 12 is an opening somewhat for a school like Baylor in a sense where there's a lot of parity.
Yeah.
And you have these 1-score games. We saw on the conference schedule last week, I think there were 4 or 5 1-score games, and any team can win on any given day for the most part. So you hope Baylor would try to take advantage of that this weekend. It will be BYU's first Big 12 conference win on the road.
Really? Because they struggled last year.
Yeah.
They showed signs at the end of the year looking a little bit better. But yeah, I mean, when you're that even, it's going to come. I mean, who doesn't turn the ball over? Who's better coached? Who's better conditioned? At the end of the game, that kind of thing. Who's going to be in the right place? Unlike the guys were on Victory Cigar, that play at the end of the game, the defensive view. I'm not. It's
what it's called.
But you watch the play, guys weren't where they supposed to be. I mean, and then that's how you get a Hail Mary.
All right, Oklahoma State. I was disappointed last week.
Yeah, me too.
I was really disappointed. I was almost Mike Gundy has forgotten more than I'll ever know about football 30 times over. I was bummed to see Bowman not come out starting in the second half. I texted you. I said 3 turnovers in the first half, and you're down 10-3, and you said it should be worse.
Yeah, I mean, it's wild that they were in that game because if you watch the whole game, it's like Utah's the better team. Yeah. I mean, like at least that day they were the better team. There's no doubt about it. Yet OSU kind of had a chance, and they made it interesting at the end too. But just how poorly Bowman played. And there doesn't seem to be a realistic or a good option as a backup. So they're going to have to go with him. I mean, they said it had to do with his footwork. He was all over the place. I don't know. He didn't look good. And you got to give Utah credit. I mean, they're good on defense, but they went in there with a backup quarterback and, kind of exposed Oklahoma State in a lot of ways. They still, they loaded the box, made it where they tried to force Bowman to beat him and he couldn't do it.
I said on that Big 12 show we do Inside the 12 yesterday, there's good news for Oklahoma fans is that Ollie Gordon last year, as you well know, got off to a very slow start. And the last 11 games of the season, he had 1,600 rushing yards. Yeah. So how do you make that happen this year?
I mean, last year they did it by changing up their offense to what they're doing now. And so it's that what makes you nervous, your Oklahoma State. It's like 6 senior offensive linemen. And how much better are they going to get? I don't know. I mean, so I think you may just have to throw the ball a lot, and that makes you nervous because Bowman has had good games and bad games, So, I mean, could they go up and beat K-State? Of course they could, because K-State's not world beaters either. I mean, heck, Bowman almost beat Utah, but it just, gosh, if they could run the ball, they'd be a lot better right now.
No better time of year. It's we're a handful of days from October. It's 80-something degrees outside. It's not 100.
Nice out. I love it.
It's not 100 degrees, at least, right? The Cowboys play tonight on Thursday Night Football, and an opportunity for them to get things together. That loss, I thought, last Sunday was just such a kick in the teeth because the comeback, okay, fine, but you got beat up what seemed like all game long, and you can't stop a nosebleed.
Yeah.
So how do they win tonight? What do you foresee happening?
Well, I mean, it's a week-to-week league, just like in college football. So, I mean, I've learned a long time ago that what happened week 3 doesn't really necessarily mean that's going to happen week 4, and they don't really go hand in hand always. So it's a week-to-week league. That's why you see in the NFL teams like, why did they win? How did they win that game? But I think they got to start running the ball, and they got to stop the run. They are awful against the run right now. I was looking some up earlier today. They're off to their worst start in rush defense since 1963. That's how bad their rush defense
really?
Is. Yeah, it's brutal. It's brutal how bad
that's a really good stat.
Well, I mean, like Baltimore just said, we're just going to run it a lot and try and stop us, and Dallas couldn't. So they've got to figure something. I mean, their red zone defense is the worst in the NFL. Yet you win tonight, you're 2-2, and you're like, all right, okay. You're in a winnable division. So you win tonight, everything's okay. And Dallas has dominated New York since Eli Manning retired, because he kind of used to whoop up on Dallas a lot, or at least a fair amount. They've won 13 out of 14 against the Giants. So they have dominated the series, and I don't know. I don't see why they don't do that again tonight. But yeah, they've got to stop the run.
All right, First National Bank in Central Texas. Dan Ingham, take us to the bank. Win us some money here, or let us have some fun.
Yeah, I had a good couple of first weeks. Last week was not good with my Houston Texans and Oklahoma State football picks. So I'm going to go in college. I like Georgia, even though they're on the road, 2-point favorite against Alabama. I like them to cover. I think they're the better team. I think that they already had their oopsie game that they still won against Kentucky. So I like Georgia. And a team that burned me earlier, but they're 0-3, the Cincinnati Bengals, but they are a 4.5-point favorite over the Patriots. I think they get back on track, cover, and win. So I like
that's a revenge game.
Yes, good call. I like Patriots and Georgia as my take it to the bank, everybody.
So the Patriots and Georgia take it to the bank.
No, the Bengals.
The Bengals. Sorry.
Bengals. Yes, they're going to get their first win. They're 0-3.
I have a question for you.
Go.
So the SEC and the Big 12, I was asked a question earlier today. When you talk about how good the SEC is and the Big 10 is, right? They're elite. What makes the Big 12 special? What makes them?
We're talking football, right?
Talking football right now. Yeah, because I think it's the best basketball conference in America.
Yeah.
But what makes them special? And it's I had an argument with a buddy. Of course, he lives in North Carolina, about how much better the Big 12 is than the ACC. I think it's hands down. Forget about that outlier with SMU and TCU. But what makes the Big 12 special?
I think the depth, the number of teams that can compete for a championship this year. And I think the Big 12 is starting to market that too, and also kind of market the craziness of the Big 12, the wildness of it. I think that they're something they're marketing. So, but I would say the depth. Do they have a team like Alabama? No. Georgia, Texas? No. That's reality. Utah's the best team, and I bet you if you ask Vegas to rank they probably would have Utah 7, 8. I'm guessing right there. But the depth, the number of teams that are in the top 25 that can win any given week, that's what makes it special, I would say.
How important is it for Utah to emerge as a power for the Big 12?
I don't know that. I mean, it'd be great. I think you need some powers. And so that's the downside of it too, especially when you're a league that's not guaranteed a second spot in that playoff 12. So I do think it would be beneficial if the Big 12 had 2 or 3 teams kind of rise to the top this year. And that way you would love to be going into that championship game with 2 teams playing it that you feel pretty good they're going to get into the playoff. But back to Utah, I think it'd be huge if they rose to that. I mean, I don't know I think they probably are the best candidate. Though I always thought TCU was a candidate to do that too, just because of the money they have, the NIL money. But I don't know if they have to. I mean, they're looking bad right now, but that's another story. And Baylor being in Texas, they can do things as well. But Utah, because Utah does not have the same kind of recruiting advantage that somebody in Texas does. They have to recruit a lot in California and in Texas and nationally. And if you get the right NIL money, you can do that. But I think it'd be huge if 2 or 3 teams kind of rise to the top this year, because it makes it that much more likely you'll get 2 teams in the playoff.
That's why I was disappointed in Oklahoma State, because I look at just the weapons in Mike Gundy, and I feel like if you're talking about this being a 2 playoff team league, like Oklahoma State, like last year, you know what I mean? Like I love that they just have so much potential in a system like this where we have a 12-team playoff. And I think you get 2 teams in and you're the Big 12. I think we get reminded of just how much crazy stuff can happen in these bigger playoff scenarios.
Can happen. They're still, I mean, they've got a hiccup. I mean, can you get in with 1? Can you get in with 2 losses? I think it's very possible. Having a win against Arkansas, who is won a couple of, that will help Oklahoma State, but they're going to have to go win at K-State, and then they might have to go win a Big 12 championship game, a rematch with Utah possibly to get into the playoff. But it's far from over for them.
All right, Dan Ingham, he's not done with you yet today. Catch him tonight live on the CW, high school football, Shoemaker and
Temple.
That's at Leo
Blue
Buckley
front, white
Stadium.
back.
What's that?
Blue front, white back. They have those unique pants, blue front in the back, or blue in the front, white in the back. So a lot of cool traditions at Temple.
Live on the CW, and also you can stream it on kwtx.com. Dan, thank you so much.
Thanks, bud. We'll see you soon.
We'll step aside and be back with the Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
Cam. By the way, tough shoes to fill. That was a white hot segment. Dan's awesome.
No, they fit fine. They are white though.
So we have a personal matter to attend to. Cam is having issues with transportation. And I mean, Cam, I couldn't talk to you about anything else right now because that
this is dominated the last.
This is an authentic
almost
operation.
24 hours of my life. Yeah.
So you're in the market for what you hoped would be a Toyota Camry.
Corolla.
Toyota Corolla.
Actually, I would prefer a Camry, but yeah.
And you had one at a car lot here locally, and it fell through. What happened? You just got the text.
Yep. So, beautifully priced Corolla, 140,000 miles, but no major accidents, no major repairs. You know those things. That's half its life right there. You know, I could get another good couple years out of that. And the guy called me last night, set up a time for 2:30 today. And, you know, he's doing that car salesman thing of, oh, I don't know, this is real popular. It might be off the lot. And I'm like, I'll take my chances. And I had this thought last night. I'm like, I do have some time in the morning before my show. If it's as quick a process as he says, like, why don't I just go in the morning? And I thought, no, because then you'll have already conceded something to them. You know what I mean? It means you're buying into this crap that it's going to be gone like that. And so I had an appointment set up for 2:30. And as we're recording this right now, it's what, quarter two? I get a text at 1:15. Corolla's gone. Sold.
Let me ask you this question.
And by the way, this has been at least a month-long excursion to get a new car. And I've been driving around an ESPN van instead. I need a car.
So I have a quick question for you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, God, I hate to think this is a conspiracy is abound. But I have a friend at said car dealership who I messaged and said that you would be coming over to look at this car. And for a man over there who was working specifically with you to take care of you, he said he would, and that this guy was a good guy. Are you sure the car's gone?
Well, I mean, I did return the text.
Did I tip your hand and then possibly they're messing with you right now?
I did return the text and said, hey, like, this is what I'm looking for. Price, make, model. Like, you know, I know not all of them get to the website. So I'm like, see what you got. See what you got for me. I am trying to make you a sale here. So go see what you got. I don't know. I'm waiting to hear back. Look, as the great Tom Brenneman once said, I'm a man of faith.
Oh my God.
I do believe in God. I also believe God has a sense of humor. And I think God is telling me, don't get a car. Somehow make it through living in Central Texas for the next couple of months without a car. And then go find a way to move to Chicago without a car. I think that's what the good Lord's telling me right now. I think he's tried to tell me that 3 times over the last year.
I think now we're talking.
That we're getting to the bottom of this here?
Yeah, you're starting to see the signs.
But I can't live without a car. I can't.
Well, hold on now. First of all,
although the Acura ran pretty good today.
The car, you've got 2 options.
Pretty good today.
As I see it, you've got 2 options.
Yeah.
The car you're driving around now, which you do not own, the owner has no clue you're driving it as much as you are.
The van?
Yeah.
Oh, they know. They know.
And what did they say?
I just talked to him the other day. It's a company van for another place I work at. And he was like, how's the van treating you? And I'm like, it's been very good. I really appreciate you helping me out with this, which is as cordial a conversation as we've ever had. He told someone else to tell me I could use the van. So I didn't think they would think it was this long, but like he knows I'm still using it. Yeah.
I think if you gave him a $25 gift card to HEB, all your worries will be taken care of. I really do.
And to be fair to myself here, I really don't drive it very far.
No, you
China
don't.
Spring for football games as far as I drive it, which is about 25 minutes.
And you drove your Acura today, which kind of put us in the situation, and it drove well.
Yeah. Yep. And here's the weird thing with Grace my Acura. Your
lovely girlfriend.
I don't.
Huh?
When I talk to her about it, I get so bent out of shape. So she doesn't know a ton of. I just told her that the Corolla sold. She's like, "Oh, bummer."
Do you use your significant other? This is what I do.
Yes, I do.
Sometimes
I absolutely use her.
Sometimes I catch myself playing hero ball, which is I have certain things that go on in my life that I tell my very close friends, a therapist, somebody I'm tight with in AA, and I don't tell her. I'm just like, she doesn't need to know this.
Yeah, I would say it's rare, but yeah.
Okay.
That absolutely has happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Like there's and I think it's a myth.
And
There's
sometimes it's like family stuff.
Yeah.
That I'm like, this probably won't amount to anything. Let's just keep I'll talk to my siblings about it.
Yeah, that's good.
Some things like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes I do play hero ball. Like I'll have something going and I won't tell her. And of course she tells me everything.
Actually, you know what stuff I
far as I know.
won't tell her about very much? And it's going to sound harsh when I tell you. But like career stuff, job stuff, especially when I was like, we were living together and I was unemployed, so I was looking for jobs. You kind of know this from sports media. Like I'll be looking at stuff, not necessarily for stuff all the time. Something pops up. I'm like, oh, I could do that. Or maybe this is a career path I want to go down. And so when I was unemployed, I was obviously throwing my hat in a bunch of different rings and people would get back to you and we'd kind of set some things up. And there was one time there was a job I really liked the idea of, and I had gotten called back for an interview, but they had told me, hey, it's going to be a multi-interview process. And I told Grace about it and she told her whole family about it. And I was like, and her family, I love her family. They love me. But for me, pretty well-off family with a very smart daughter who's about to get her doctorate and dating this bum like me, I'm like, and I didn't get a second call back. And so now all they know is I've applied for a job and I didn't get it. And so that's why I'm like, and I was kind of mad at the time, but I knew she meant well. And I was like, Grace, please don't tell your family when I'm applying for a job, because there's always a good chance I don't get it. You know what I mean? Like and so she was like, oh, but they're not going to judge you for it. I'm like, I don't care.
Yes.
Now I go into that thinking like these people think I'm a fucking loser, which they probably should compared to, the rest of the people.
Did anybody ever personally ask you like, oh, have you heard?
I don't think so.
Okay.
They might have. I don't know. But I remember taking another job that was out of sports media, and it was a good little thing that I had for the time, but it wasn't like my career path. And I remember her dad being like, oh, that's a good career to be in. That's a good. And I knew that was just him trying to be nice. And so I was like, yeah, please just don't say what jobs I'm looking at, because there's always more often than not, I'm not going to get the job.
It's a tough deal. That's always been a tough deal. Like when I had
like
times, I had times.
So I keep that like real close to the vest unless I'm really close to it. Even with like my dad, who I'll talk to like anything about.
I used to, when I was around your age and a little older, I would tell everybody all about that stuff. And the older I've gotten, I've realized like I don't talk about it until it's done.
And I understand also that me, like I have a low self-esteem. And so like I will think about that stuff all the time when I don't get the job, and I don't want other people knowing about that. Like I understand that is also very much a me problem.
And then knowing that they know can affect how you act.
Yes.
Which you just don't want.
Right.
You'd rather none of that happen. All right. I want to ask you about this game because I do
obviously I use her to get back to that point real quick. I do use her because she is a therapist, and I don't talk about a lot of things. So I probably use her too much for that. Like the other night she called me and I was bugging out about something. She was just calling to say, hey, and ask how my day was. And I was like, yeah, it wasn't great. Oh, like what's wrong? You want to talk about it? Oh, well, just I fucking hate this and this and this. And it became like a 30-minute thing where I just started to, like I talked myself into freaking out. And I was like, I'm so sorry, you don't need this. So
does she help you though?
Yeah, she always does. She always does. And I feel bad because she hears people's problems all day.
And
she deals with kids who have like legitimate problems. And so anyway,
you're not far off.
So kind of the opposite.
I think in my mind, you're a kid with legitimate problems.
I am. And it doesn't help that I'm not living with her right now. So, I mean, my day, it's a lot of work, not to complain about that, but it's a lot of work and I don't see a lot of people. And so like I don't have a sounding off board when I get home the way I used to. And so I kind of bottle a lot of this shit up. And a couple times a week,
she's like, thank God.
Yes. And she should. Yeah, she should.
Like a phone call a night is probably way better than you coming home and unloading on her.
Yeah.
But no, I think truthfully, I think that's a great relationship. And I think she probably really loves helping you out. Like
she does.
You know,
I
like
think.
sometimes,
and like I really struggled to reciprocate that, because when I don't know what to tell somebody, I won't tell them. You know, I'll be like, I'm really sorry that happened. And like
Well, you don't have to say
she
anything.
knows
The right thing to
exactly
say.
like what
Yeah.
to say, because it's literally her life.
Yeah.
And I don't. And so I feel so shitty that I'll unload on this. She'll have great answers for me. And then she'll say something that's happening in her life, and I'm like, I'm really sorry. And I'll say it. I'll be like, I'm sorry. I don't know kind of the right advice to give you right now. I'm here for you. I'll help you out in whatever way you want me to. Or like there's some things in my life that, like lessons that I've learned, that I will tell a little bit more harshly than a therapist will. And it's probably not the right way to say it.
But to her?
Yeah. I'll give you an example. I'll
Yeah,
give you an
please.
example. And it's kind of personal, so I apologize. But Grace just moved to a new place. She's very outgoing, very extroverted. But she moved to this new place after spending the summer at her parents' house to be closer to her family before her job started. And so she comes back when the job starts, and she's like, first couple of weeks, she's like, I really want to go out. I want to do stuff. I want to go to trivia nights. And like, I'm having trouble connecting with people and finding friends. And I'm like, you know, trying to give some advice back. And it gets to like kind of a back and forth to the point where I was like, I don't want this to sound really rude, but like, if this was a big thing for you and you knew it was going to be, like, why did you go home for the summer? Why didn't you stay in your new place and try and meet people? And so it's shit like that a therapist probably wouldn't tell you. But she was like, well, you're kind of right. I'm like, I promise I'm not trying to sound like a dick, but like, if that was a big thing for you,
that's what you
yeah. So those kinds of things are like probably not something you'd hear in therapy, but
I think it might.
I don't know
honestly,
if I had
can
a
say
childhood of
something?
tough love or
If
anything.
you have a
but
good
I'd say
therapist,
that.
that's what you will hear.
I guess.
And it's an
She's a good
opportunity to learn from that and to move forward. You know,
That's all part of that Patriot Way stuff we were talking about last week, of like, ignore the bullshit. Like, then this is probably a detriment to me a lot of the time, of like, there's something I can control in everything, you know,
100%.
like this situation, this car situation.
Yeah, but there's only
I
so
should have gone
much.
this morning.
But there's yeah, you should have gone right now. I apologize that you.
No. It's like it was already gone. I should have gone this morning. And in reality, it was like, you know what, Cameron, you set up an appointment yesterday. Cameron, yeah. You set up an appointment yesterday for the next day. If it wasn't there by 2:30 in the afternoon, it wasn't meant to be. But me, I'm like, shit, I had some time in the morning. I should have gone in the morning. Now this is my fault. I should have really looked at this the other day and put something for yesterday. And so, yeah.
That's accountability, though. I think that's a trait that I have, and it served me well.
Pete's like, you're right. You should have gone in the morning.
When you look at when you look at your body of work,
Yeah.
like me, like in my life, I every time I'm accountable, it moves me towards the positive result.
It's like exactly what we were talking about kind of in jest the other day, of what's the common denominator with all these car problems? It's me.
Yeah.
Even though they all seem to be weird, fluke, bad luck things, I look in the mirror and say, you are the common denominator here. What are you doing wrong? How could you have done something better?
I think that's good. I think CD Lamb just did that yesterday. Unfortunately, it was a little too late. All right, Baylor BYU.
Yeah, sorry, man. I derailed
you talked to the guy in Provo yesterday, right?
Yeah, Jake Hatch.
So what are your thoughts on this game? Baylor's favored. We'll make this quick.
Yeah.
I find it like wild that they're favored. But
Crazy.
Then I look at the fact that BYU is 2-12 in their last 14 games.
Vegas knows a lot, but are they taking that into account?
They have to. They have to be. And that's
someone brought up a good point in my comment section of Baylor has done really well against the spread this year. And that could be a reason. And a home game, like you just mentioned with Dan, BYU has not won a road game in the Big 12 yet. So
you want to hear something
like those kind of things I get. Yeah.
I did, as you guys like to give me a hard time. I did I must have done 5 games in 5 or 6 BYU games overall last year. And probably
overall meaning football and basketball?
Basketball.
Okay.
Just basketball. 3 of them were out there and 3 of them were in other places. Let's just say off the top of my head. They won every game out there at night going away. They lost the games during the day on the road, going away too, from what I remember. And I remember they lost their NCAA tournament game that it was like an 11 o'clock or noon start. And I remember they were upset. And I remember thinking, like, I should have known better. I should have picked against them. And the person I was talking to was like, well, they have to win that game. I'm like, yeah, but
It was to Duquesne. Yeah.
there was a Duquesne.
Keith Dambrot's Duquesne.
It was
Yeah.
Duquesne. Yeah. All right, we got to end the show early because we have appointments.
I think Baylor will lose tight.
You do.
I think it's a game that's going to be won in the margins, which is a term you know I love. But I truly believe that with this game. I think they're pretty evenly matched, even though BYU's 4-0. And when it comes down to that, I don't know that I trust Baylor to win a game in the margins.
Okay.
Even though they both had losing records last year. I thought they lost it in the margins last week. I thought they outplayed Colorado for a great deal of that game, and they still lost. So I do have BYU winning a tight one.
What about Mosley? He does the dismount. I was listening to you. The dismount. He does. Zach Mosley ends the show like 15 minutes early every day. I was like, wait, what's happening?
Sponsored segment right after. Can't blame him for that.
Is that every day?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
We're going to do the dismount.
And sometimes I'll record an interview ahead of time, and that'll take us to the end, and we can all get off a little early. I think he's got one today. I believe he talked to, I don't want to put too much out there. I believe he talked to one Kalani Sataki today.
Oh,
yeah.
Matt Mosley Show, ESPN Central Texas. You can catch Cam there too. We'll be back tomorrow. The Pete Sousa Show, powered by the Rogue Media Network.
It's the Pete Sousa Show. Sports, Pete.
We are Rogue Media Sports.